Dr. Velithka pressed his 4 hands against the control panel, watching the numbers drop on his screen. The energy shields around their space station were getting weaker. Soon, they would fail completely. When that happened, the machines would come for them. The Kelrani research station floated in space, near the giant planet, this Prime. It was a peaceful place where scientists studied the gas giant's strange moons and collected samples from its colorful rings. The Kelrani people had built this station to learn about the universe, not to fight wars. They had no weapons, no soldiers, and no way to defend themselves. Velithka was the head scientist on the station. Like all Kelrani, he was tall and thin. With pale blue skin, his people came from a quiet world where nothing ever tried to hurt them. They ate plants, lived in harmony, spent their time thinking about science and art. War was something they read about in books, not something they understood. "Any answer to our message?" Velithka asked. His voice shook with fear. Thanemal looked up from his communications desk. He was younger than Velithka, but just as scared. "Nothing from the council ships," he said. "The closest warship is still 5 days away. We will be dead before they get here." The Devourers were coming. Everyone in the galaxy feared them. They were not alive like normal creatures, or machines, built long ago by some unknown race. Now they traveled through space, eating entire planets. They turned everything they found into more machines like themselves. The Devourers had appeared near their system 3 days ago. At first, there were only a few small ships. The council thought they could handle them, but more kept coming. Hundreds. Of them, thousands. They formed a dark cloud in space that grew larger every hour. The Kelrani had sent out distress calls to everyone they could reach. The Galactic Council promised to send help, but their ships were too far away. Ain't other friendly. Species offered sympathy, but had no fleet strong enough to fight the machines. One by one, the responses stopped coming. Velithka walked to the big window that looked out into space. Far away, he could see tiny lights moving against the stars. Those lights were the Devourer swarm, getting closer. In 2 days, maybe less, they would reach the station. The machines would tear it apart and turn everyone inside into raw materials. The station housed 200 Kelrani scientists and their families. There were children here, young ones who had never seen their home world. They would never get the chance now. "Doctor," called out Niradel from the sensor station. She was one of the smartest people on the station, an expert in detecting things. Far away in space, "I am getting a strange signal." Velithka hurried over to her station. "What kind of signal?" "It is very old-fashioned," Niradel said, looking puzzled. "They are using radio waves instead of quantum messages. Signal is weak and hard to understand. Most advanced species used quantum communication. It was fast and clear and worked across vast distances instantly. Radio waves were what primitive species used when they first learned to talk across space. It was slow and often broke up. Can you clean it up? Velithka asked. Niradel worked at her controls for several minutes. Static and noise filled the air. Then suddenly a voice came through. It spoke in a language none of them had ever heard before, but their computers quickly translated it. Unknown ship. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Defiance. We picked up your distress call. What is your situation? The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the speaker. Earth. They had all heard rumors about that planet. It was listed in the galactic databases as a death world, a place so dangerous that most species could not survive there. The creatures that lived there were called humans. Most civilized people thought humans were just stories. Some said they were violent savages who fought each other constantly. Others claimed they were so tough that they could live in places that would kill anyone else. The few reports that existed painted them as dangerous and unpredictable, but they were supposed to be new to space travel. How could they be here, so far from their home system? Velithka found his voice. This is Dr. Velithka of the Kelrani Research Station. We are under attack by devourer machines. Our defenses are failing. We have maybe 2 of your days before they overrun us. There was a pause. Then the human voice came back, sounding calm and confident. Copy that, Doc. Defiance is coming with a small fleet. Hold on, a small fleet? Thane Mull whispered. How many ships could they have? Mirabelle checked her sensors. I am detecting 3 vessels approaching our position. They are small, much smaller than Council warships. Velithka felt his heart sink. 3 tiny ships against thousands of devourers. These humans, whoever they were flying to their deaths. And they would not be enough to save the station either. Captain Morrison Velithka said into the communicator. I must tell you, the devourer force is enormous. It's thousands of ships. Your 3 vessels cannot possibly stand against them. The human laughed. Actually laughed. Doc, you have not seen? What humans can do when we are angry. Just keep your shields up and stay out of our way. The connection ended. Velithka stared at the communicator, not sure what to think. Were these humans brave or just foolish? Did they really believe they could fight such impossible odds? Dr. Niradel said softly. I am getting more detailed scans of the human ships. They are very strange. Strange how? Their hulls are incredibly thick, much thicker than necessary for normal space travel, and they have many layers of armor. These ships are built like fortresses. Velithka studied the sensor readings. The human vessels did look unusual. Most spaceship designs focused on speed and efficiency. These looked like they were designed to survive terrible damage. Why would anyone build ships like that unless they expected to be attacked regularly? More disturbing were the energy readings. Human ships were putting out signatures that suggested they carried weapons. Lots of weapons. More firepower than most species would put on a ship 10 times. Larger. There is something else, Niradel added. The way they move. Look at their flight pattern. On the display, the 3 human ships moved through space in a way that made no sense to Kelrani's eyes. They did not fly in straight lines or gentle curves. Like civilized vessels, instead they moved in sharp angles and sudden direction changes. They flew like predators hunting prey. How long until they reach us? Velithka asked. 6 hours, Thane Mull replied. The devourers will be here in 30 hours. That gave them time to watch and wait. Time to see if these mysterious humans were really as dangerous as the rumors claimed. Time to find out if 3 small ships could somehow stand against a swarm that had destroyed entire star systems. Velithka ordered his people to monitor every frequency and sensor they had. If these humans were going to fight the devourers, the Kelrani would watch and learn. And maybe if they survived, they could tell the galaxy what they had seen. The stars continued to shine outside the station windows. Somewhere among them, death was approaching from 2 directions. The devourers brought destruction and despair. The humans brought questions and possibilities that no one could answer. In the quiet corridors of the research station, families held each other close. Parents told children stories to keep them from being afraid. Scientists worked at their instruments, trying to stay busy so they would not think about dying. And in the depths of space, 3 small ships flew toward the greatest battle any of them had ever seen. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship Defiance. The metal walls around him showed the marks of many battles. Burns from laser hits, dents from impacts, and patches where the crew had fixed holes blown through the hull. This was not a pretty ship built for exploration. This was a warship built to survive and fight. Jake looked at the tactical screen showing the enemy positions. The devourer swarm was massive, stretching across space like a dark cloud. Each dot on the screen represented a machine ship designed to destroy and consume. He counted quickly in his head. At least 3,000 enemy vessels, maybe more, next to him. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell ran checks on their weapon systems. Sarah had short brown hair and cold gray eyes that had seen too much combat. She had fought in the Mars Wars where humans learned to kill other humans in the vacuum of space. Those battles had been brutal, but they had taught valuable lessons about survival. Ma'am, the enemy has massive energy readings, reported Ensign Kyle Johnson from his sensor station. Kyle was young, barely 22 years old, but he had already seen more fighting than most species experienced in their entire lives. We are outnumbered about 100 to 1. Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator about to hunt. Those are easy numbers, Remember when we defended Saturn? The crew of Defiance had all served together in Earth's recent wars. When the mining robots on Europa went crazy and started killing colonists, these people had fought them. Attacked the Mars colonies, they had driven them off. When automated defense platforms around Saturn turned against their human operators, this crew had destroyed them all. Every person on the ship had learned to fight machines that were bigger, faster, and more numerous than they were. Earth had no choice. Humanity's home system was full of dangerous automated systems, rogue artificial intelligences, and hostile environments that tried to kill them every day. Commander Alex Torres plotted their attack course on his navigation system. Alex was a thin man with dark skin and calm hands that never shook, even in the worst battles. He had grown up on Earth's moon, where one mistake in calculating a flight path meant death in the vacuum of space. "Captain," Alex said quietly, "I have our approach route ready. We can use the asteroid field to hide our initial attack." Jake nodded. Humans had learned early that direct attacks against superior numbers usually ended badly. Instead, they used tricks, traps, and the environment itself as weapons. Earth's asteroid belt had taught them how to fight among floating rocks and debris. Every human pilot learned to use cover and concealment as naturally as breathing. The 3 human ships moved toward the battle zone. Besides Defiance, there was Vengeance commanded by Captain Lisa Parker and Retribution under Captain Ryan Cooper. All 3 ships looked similar, with thick armor and weapons sticking out from every angle. "Dr. Velithka, this is Captain Morrison," Jake spoke into the communicator. "We are moving to intercept the Devourer swarm. I need you to lower your shields in exactly 30 minutes. The alien scientist's voice came back immediately, full of panic. "Captain Morrison, with respect, lowering our shields would be suicide. The Devourers will tear through our station in moments. Trust me, Doc. We have a plan." What Jake did not tell the alien was that the plan was very simple. Humans had learned that when facing overwhelming odds, the best strategy was to hit first. Hit hard. Never stop hitting until the enemy was dead. The 3 human ships split up and moved 2 different positions around the asteroid field. They did not fly in formation like military vessels from other species. Instead, they moved like a pack of wolves, each ship taking a different angle of attack. Sarah Mitchell prepared their weapons. The Defiance carried railguns that could fire metal slugs at incredible speeds. It had laser cannons powered by nuclear reactors. Most shocking of all, it carried nuclear missiles with warheads that could crack open a moon. Other species in the galaxy used clean energy weapons that disabled enemy ships without causing too much damage. Humans used whatever worked. If that meant turning enemy vessels into glowing clouds of radioactive gas, so be it. "Enemy contact in 5 minutes," Kyle reported. "The first wave of Devourers is moving toward the station." Jake watched the display. As hundreds of machine ships approached the Kelrani station, the Devourers moved in perfect formation, like insects following simple programming. They had no fear, no imagination, and no ability to adapt to unexpected situations. That was going to be their weakness. "All ships, this is Morrison," Jake transmitted to the other human vessels. "Begin attack pattern Alpha. Remember, we are not here to play fair." The first human ship to attack was Hammer, a modified mining vessel under Captain Lisa Parker. Lisa had grown up in the asteroid belt, working on ships that had to survive impacts from space rocks moving at tremendous speeds. Her ship was built like a fortress and flew like a missile. Hammer came roaring out from behind a large asteroid, all weapons firing at once. Railgun slugs tore through the first line of Devourer ships, punching holes completely through their armor. Nuclear-powered lasers sliced other machines in half. And then came the missiles. The Kelrani, watching from their station, had never seen anything like it. Most space battles they knew about were careful, controlled affairs where ships fired energy beams at each other from long distances. This was something completely different. This was violence on a scale they could barely understand. "By the great tree," whispered Communications Officer Thanmul as he watched the display. They are using atomic weapons as normal ammunition. Doctor? Velithka stared at the tactical screen in shock. The human ship had just destroyed 20 Devourer vessels in less than 30 seconds. But more than that, the way they fought was terrifying. They showed no hesitation, no mercy, no fear of their own weapons. The second human ship, Vengeance, attacked from a different angle. Captain Ryan Cooper brought his vessels screaming in at a speed that should have been impossible. The ship pulled maneuvers that created gravitational forces strong enough to kill most organic life forms. But the humans survived. Their bodies evolved on a high-gravity world full of disasters and dangers, could handle accelerations that would turn other species into liquid. They flew their ships like extensions of their own bodies, pushing both machine and crew to limits that others could never reach. The Devourers tried to respond to the attack, but they were programmed to fight according to standard galactic tactics. They expected their enemies to maintain safe distances and fire carefully aimed shots. Instead, the humans flew directly into their formations, ramming through their lines like missiles made of metal and fury. Captain Morrison, Dr. Velithka, transmitted, his voice full of amazement and horror. Your ship design appears built for ramming attacks. Among other things, Jake replied calmly, as if discussing the weather. Earth ships are built tough. We have to survive asteroid impacts, solar flares, and gravity wells that would crush most vessels. Plus, when we started exploring space, there was a lot of debris floating around. You learn to build things that can take a hit. What Jake did not mention was that human ships were also designed for war against other humans. Every vessel was built to survive damage that would destroy. Ships from more peaceful species, redundant systems, emergency backups, and armor thick enough to stop nuclear explosions were standard features. As the battle continued, more Devourer ships moved to intercept the human attackers. The machines had superior numbers and firepower, but they could not adapt to the humans' unpredictable tactics. The third human ship, Retribution, came diving in from above the battle plane. Captain Alex Torres had waited until the Devourers focused on the other two ships, then attacked their flanks with devastating effect. The Kelrani scientists watched in fascination as the humans fought with a coordination that seemed impossible. They communicated in short, clipped phrases, each captain knowing exactly what the others would do without long explanations. Sarah, I am reading a massive energy buildup in the Devourer command ship, Lieutenant Mitchell reported. They are preparing some kind of weapon. Range on that thing? Jake asked. Looks like it could destroy the entire Kelrani station in one shot. Jake nodded grimly. Alex, plot a ramming course. Kyle, transfer all power to forward shields and engines. Sir? Kyle's voice cracked slightly. That is a ship 50 times our size. Size does not matter if you hit the right spot, Jake replied. And humans have always been good at finding weak points. The young ensign stared at his captain. In any other species, what Jake was suggesting would be considered insane. But Kyle had served with humans long enough to know that insane was often the same as effective. Dr. Velithka watched through his station's sensors as the small human ship turned toward the enormous Devourer mothership. No species in the galaxy would attempt such a suicidal attack. But these were not ordinary beings. These were the children of a world that had spent millions of years trying to kill them. And they had learned to strike back against impossible odds. The Defiance accelerated toward its target, weapons blazing and engines screaming. Behind it, the other two human ships continued their assault on the Devourer fleet, buying time and creating chaos in the enemy ranks. Dr. Velithka could not believe what he was seeing. The human ship Retribution had just crashed straight through a Devourer destroyer, tearing the machine apart from the inside. The human vessel came out the other side, damaged but still working, and immediately started shooting at the next target. The Kelrani scientist pressed all four of his hands against the observation window, watching the impossible battle taking place in space. Everything he knew about space combat said that what the humans were doing should be suicide. Ships were supposed to fight from safe distances, using careful tactics and precise weapons. But these humans fought like wild animals. They rammed their Aozu ships into enemies 10 times their size. They flew through explosions that should have destroyed them. They used weapons that other species considered too dangerous to put on spaceships. Captain Morrison, Dr. Valithka, spoke into the communicator. Your ship design appears built for ramming attacks. The human captain's voice came back, calm and relaxed, as if he was discussing lunch plans. Among other things, Earth's ships are built tough. We have to survive asteroid impacts, solar flares, and gravity wells that would crush most vessels. Plus, in our early space days, we had a lot of debris fields to navigate. You learn to build things that can take a hit. What Captain Morrison did not explain was the real reason human ships were so strong. Earth had been at war with itself for thousands of years. Humans had learned to build things that could survive attacks from other humans, who were the most creative and vicious enemies in the galaxy. Every human ship had multiple layers of armor, backup systems for the backup systems, and weapons designed to work even when everything else was broken. They were built by a species that expected their enemies to be as smart and determined as they were. On the Kelrani station, communications officer Thanimal was recording everything. His job was to document first contact with new species for the Galactic Council, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this. Dr. Velithka Thanemal said quietly, I am reading the human biosignatures. Their heart rates and stress hormones are actually decreasing during combat. That cannot be right, Dr. Velithka replied. Check your instruments. Thanemal ran the scans again, then a third time. The readings are correct. The humans are becoming calmer as the fighting gets worse. This was impossible. Every known species became more stressed during violence. Fear was a natural response that helped creatures survive by making them careful and thoughtful. But these humans seemed to work better when they were in danger. Dr. Velithka began to understand something terrifying. For most species, combat was an emergency situation that required special training and preparation. For humans, combat was apparently just another workday. As the battle continued, the Kelrani watched the human ships perform maneuvers that should have killed everyone on board. The ship Vengeance, commanded by Captain Lisa Parker, spun through a series of turns that created gravity forces strong enough to crush most organic life. How are they surviving those accelerations? Asked Niradel from her sensor station. Dr. Valethka checked the readings himself. The humans were experiencing gravitational forces that would turn a Kelrani into liquid. But they kept fighting, kept flying, kept making decisions under conditions that should have made them unconscious. Their planet, Dr. Velithka said slowly, it must have much stronger gravity than ours. He called up the database entry for Earth. What he read made his blood turn cold. Earth had gravity nearly 3 times stronger than the Kelrani homeworld. It had massive storms that could level cities, earthquakes that split continents, volcanoes that could change the planet's climate. Somehow, life had not just survived there, it had thrived. The humans were not just tough because they chose to be, they were tough because their world had spent millions of years killing anything that was not tough enough to survive. Look at this, Niradel called out, pointing to her display. The human ship Defiance is on a collision course with the Devourer mothership. The mothership was enormous, larger than some moons. It bristled with weapons and armor that could withstand the explosion of a star. The human ship approaching it was tiny by comparison, no bigger than a shuttle. They are going to ram it, Dr. Velithka whispered. They are actually going to ram a ship 50 times their size. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell's voice crackled over the communication channel from the Defiance. All stations prepare for impact. This is going to be rough. Dr. Velithka listened to the calm, professional tone in her voice. This woman was about to crash her ship into an enemy vessel in what would certainly be a suicide attack. She sounded like she was giving directions to a parking garage. The Defiance struck the Devourer mothership at tremendous speed. The impact sent shockwaves through both vessels. But instead of being destroyed, the human ship burrowed into the alien construct like a bullet penetrating armor. Impossible, breathed Thanmol. No ship can survive that kind of impact, but the Defiance had survived. More than that, it was still functional inside the enemy vessel. The Kelrani sensors showed heat signatures moving through the mothership's corridors. The humans were not just alive, they were fighting their way deeper into the ship. All hands, prepare for boarding operations. came Captain Morrison's voice over the communication system. Dr. Velithka stared at his instruments in shock. Boarding operations meant the humans were planning to fight the Devourers hand-to-hand inside their own ship. This was beyond reckless. It was insane. The Devourers were machines built for killing. They had no fear, no pain, and no mercy. Their bodies were made of metal and ceramic, stronger than most ship armor. Fighting them in close combat should be impossible for any organic creature. But the humans were doing it anyway, through the station's sensors. Dr. Velithka watched as human life signs moved through the Devourer mothership. The readings showed them engaging mechanical defenders in the ship's corridors, using handheld weapons to destroy machines 3 times their size. "This is Lieutenant Mitchell," came a transmission from inside the enemy ship. "We have reached the main computer core, beginning shutdown procedures." "Lieutenant Mitchell," Dr. Velithka responded, "our sensors show massive energy surges throughout. The vessel, you need to evacuate immediately." "Negative, Doc. If we do not finish this job, that thing will regenerate and come back stronger. Humans do not leave jobs half done." Dr. Velithka felt a chill run through his body. The human was telling him that she would rather die than fail to complete her mission. This was not bravery or heroism, so something far more frightening. This was a species that had learned that sometimes survival meant choosing death over defeat. Meanwhile, the other 2 human ships continued their attack on the remaining Devourer fleet. Captain Lisa Parker's vessel Vengeance had lost its main weapons. But instead of retreating, she turned her entire ship into a guided missile. "Vengeance to all ships," Parker's voice came over the radio. "I am making a torpedo run on the command cluster. Tell my kids I love them." Dr. Velithka watched in horror as the human captain deliberately crashed her ship into a group of enemy vessels. Using her ship's nuclear reactor as a bomb, the explosion destroyed 6 Devourer ships and crippled several others. "She killed herself," Thane Mull said in a stunned voice. "She destroyed her own ship to damage the enemy." "No," Dr. Velithka corrected quietly. "She sacrificed herself to protect us." The Retribution, heavily damaged and leaking atmosphere, continued to fight even as its systems failed one by one. Captain Ryan Cooper and his crew manually operated their weapons, using backup power and emergency procedures that should have been impossible to execute under such extreme conditions. "Retribution, actual to station," came Cooper's transmission. "We are down to emergency power and manual controls, but we are still in the fight. Do not worry about us." Dr. Velithka realized he was witnessing something that the galaxy had never seen before. These humans did not fight like any known species. They did not retreat when outnumbered, surrender when outgunned, or give up when their situation became hopeless. Instead, they became more dangerous. Dr. Velithka called Niradel. "I am detecting some kind of chain reaction in the Devourer mothership. The humans have done something to its power core." The tactical display, the massive enemy vessel began to glow with increasing brightness. Whatever the humans had done inside the ship was causing it to overload. "Lieutenant Mitchell, this is the station," Dr. Velithka transmitted desperately. "The ship is going to explode. You have to get out." "Working on it, Doc," came Mitchell's calm reply. "But if we do not make it, tell Earth that we completed the mission." Dr. Velithka found himself praying to gods he was not sure he believed. These humans had come across the galaxy to save people they had never met. They had fought impossible odds without hesitation. They had sacrificed their lives to protect strangers, and they had done it all as if it was just another day at work. The explosion, when it came, lit up space like a new sun. The Devourer mothership, which had seemed invincible just hours before, disintegrated in a ball of nuclear fire that could be seen from several star systems away. As the light faded, Dr. Velithka searched his sensors desperately for any sign of the human ship Defiance. For long minutes, there was nothing but debris and radiation. The explosion of the Devourer mothership sent waves of energy across the entire star system. Dr. Velithka shielded his eyes from the bright flash that lit up the observation windows. When the light faded, a glowing cloud of debris marked where the massive enemy vessel had been just moments before, but the battle was not over. Hundreds of smaller Devourer ships still swarmed through space around the Kelrani station. Without their mothership to coordinate them, the machines began acting more like angry insects than an organized fleet. They attacked anything that moved, including each other. Status report on the human ships, Dr. Velithka called out to his crew. Nira-Del worked frantically at her sensor station. The Vengeance is completely destroyed. Captain Parker and her crew are gone. The Retribution is barely holding together, but still fighting. Oh. And the Defiance. She paused, staring at her readings in confusion. What about the Defiance? Dr. Velithka demanded. It is still inside the debris field from the mothership explosion. I am detecting life signs, but the ship appears to be badly damaged. Dr. Velithka felt his heart racing. Humans had saved them all by destroying the mothership, but at a terrible cost. One ship destroyed, one dying, and one trapped in radioactive wreckage. A weak signal crackled through the communication system. Station, this is Captain Morrison. We are alive, but hurt bad. Our engines are down, and we have hull breaches on 3 decks. Captain Morrison, this is Dr. Velithka. Can you reach a safe distance from the wreckage? Negative. You're stuck in the debris field. But that is not our biggest problem right now. What do you mean? There was a pause before Morrison answered. Doc, we found something inside the mothership before it blew up. The Devourers were not just here to destroy your station. They were building something. Dr. Velithka felt a cold fear settle in his stomach. Building what? A gateway? Some kind? Of portal device. If they had finished it, they could have brought their entire fleet through from wherever they came from. The implications hit Dr. Velithka like a physical blow. The Devourer swarm they had been fighting was just the advance force. Somewhere in deep space, there was a much larger fleet waiting to pour through once the gateway was complete. Captain Dr. Velithka said urgently, "Did you destroy this gateway? That is what caused the big explosion?" But Doc, we found the construction plans in their computer system. They have built these things before, in other star systems. This is not the first time they have done this. The meaning was clear. The Devourers had been using these gateways to spread across the galaxy, consuming one system after another. The Kelrani Research Station had just been unlucky enough to be their next target. Meanwhile, Captain Ryan Cooper in the badly damaged Retribution continued to fight the remaining enemy ships. His vessel was leaking air and running on emergency power, but he refused to retreat. All stations. This is Cooper. His voice came over the radio. My ship is falling apart, but we still have teeth. Any Devourer that wants to get to that station has to go through us first. Dr. Velithka watched through his sensors as the human ship, barely functional, positioned itself between the station and the largest group of enemy vessels. The Retribution was outnumbered 20-1, but Cooper attacked anyway. The human ship moved like a wounded animal, slow and clumsy compared to its earlier grace. But it was still deadly. Cooper used his remaining weapons with surgical precision, targeting the enemy ship's weak points and using the debris field as cover. How is he still fighting? Asked Thanmal in amazement. That ship should not even be able to fly. Dr. Velithka studied the sensor readings. The Retribution had lost most of its armor, half its weapons, and was running on backup life support. By any reasonable standard, it should have been abandoned hours ago. But the humans were not reasonable by anyone else's standards. Cooper to station, came the captain's voice, now strained with effort. I am reading more enemy contacts coming in from the outer system. Looks like reinforcements. Act. Dr. Velithka checked his long-range sensors. Cooper was right. Another wave of Devourer ships was approaching, drawn by the battle. Not as many as the first wave, but still enough to overwhelm the damaged human vessels. Captain Cooper, you need to retreat. Your ship cannot handle another engagement. Doc, I appreciate the concern, but humans do not run away when people are counting on us. We will hold the line until the job is done. It was then that Dr. Velithka truly understood what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. It was not just their toughness or their weapons or their willingness to fight. It was their absolute refusal to abandon anyone. Under their protection, other species fought to defend their own territory, their own people, their own interests. Humans fought to defend anyone who needed defending, even if they had never met them before. A new voice joined the communication channel. All ships, this is Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, aboard the Defiance. We have partial engine power restored and are moving to assist retribution. Dr. Velithka looked at his sensors in shock. The Defiance was emerging from the wreckage of the mothership. Like a ghost returning from the dead, the ship was battered and scorched, with pieces of armor hanging loose and entire sections blown away. But it was moving under its own power. Lieutenant Mitchell, Dr. Velithka, transmitted, "Your ship appears to be severely damaged. Should you not be evacuating your crew?" Mitchell's laugh came clearly over the radio. "Doc, this old bucket has been through worse than this. We lost some good people in the boarding action, but the survivors are not giving up now." The Defiance limped toward the new battle, trailing debris and atmosphere. It should have been heading for the nearest repair station, not looking for another fight. But the humans seemed to have a different definition of what was possible as the second wave of Devourers approached. The two surviving human ships took position near the Kelrani station, the Retribution barely holding together and the Defiance rising from what should have been its grave. "Station, this is Morrison," came the captain's voice from the Defiance. "We are going to try something new. When I give the word, drop your shields for exactly 10 seconds. Captain, that would expose us to enemy fire. Trust me, Doc. We have learned a few tricks from fighting these machines." Dr. Velithka hesitated. Everything in his training told him that lowering their shields during combat was suicide. But the humans had already done several impossible things today. "Very well, Captain. We will be ready." The second wave of Devourers came in fast, eager to finish what their predecessors had started. But they found the humans waiting for them. With tactics that no machine intelligence could predict, instead of fighting a straight battle, the humans used the station itself as bait. They allowed the enemy ships to get close, then used the station's massive bulk as cover while they attacked from unexpected angles. When Morrison gave the signal, the Kelrani dropped their shields for exactly 10 seconds. In that brief window, the Defiance fired a full spread of nuclear missiles that passed harmlessly through the shield gap, then detonated among the enemy formation. The explosions caught the Devourers completely by surprise. Their programming had not anticipated tactics that used the defended target as part of the attack strategy. "Shields up," Morrison ordered, and the Kelrani complied instantly. The remaining Devourer ships, confused and damaged, began to retreat toward the outer system. But the humans were not finished with them. "All human vessels pursue and destroy," came Cooper's voice. "We do not let any of them escape to report back to their fleet." Dr. Velithka watched as the two battered human ships chased the fleeing machines into deep space. It seemed impossible that such damaged vessels could continue fighting. But the humans had already proven that impossible was just another word for difficult. Over the next several hours, the sounds of distant explosions echoed through space as the humans hunted down every remaining Devourer ship. They showed no mercy and accepted no surrender, because machines could not surrender anyway. When the last enemy vessel was destroyed, the human ships returned to the station. Both were barely functional, held together by emergency repairs and stubborn determination. "Station, this is Morrison," came the tired voice of the human captain. "Area secure. All enemy contacts destroyed. Request permission to dock for repairs and medical assistance." Dr. Velithka found himself crying, though he was not sure if it was from relief or gratitude or simple amazement at what he had witnessed. "Permission. Granted, Captain Morrison. And Captain ... Thank you. Just doing our job, Doc. That is what humans do." The docking bay of the Kelrani research station had never been designed for warships. The human vessels Defiance and Retribution barely fit through the entrance, their scarred hulls scraping against the walls as they slowly moved inside. Pieces of armor plating fell to the deck like metal rain. Dr. Velithka stood in the observation gallery, watching the two battered ships settle into the docking cradles. Both vessels looked like they had been through a war, which of course they had. The Defiance was missing entire sections of its hull, with emergency patches covering dozens of holes. The Retribution was even worse, held together by what appeared to be cables and spare metal welded over the damaged areas. "Are they even still flying?" asked Niradel, standing beside him. "I am beginning to think that human engineering follows different rules than ours," Dr. Velithka replied quietly. The first humans to emerge from their ships moved slowly, helping wounded crewmates who could not walk on their own. Dr. Velithka had prepared the station's medical bay, but he was not sure if Kelrani equipment could help human injuries. Captain Jake Morrison was one of the last to leave his ship. His left arm was in a makeshift sling, and burn marks covered half of his uniform. But he walked steadily, checking on his crew and giving orders for ship repairs. "Captain Morrison," Dr. Velithka called out as he approached the human. "How can we help your wounded?" Jake looked up with tired eyes. "Our medic says human and Kelrani biology are similar enough that your equipment should work. We lost some good people in the fighting, but the survivors will heal. I am sorry for your losses." Jake nodded grimly. Captain Lisa Parker and her crew knew the risks. They died so that others could live. That is what humans do. Over the next few days, Dr. Velithka learned more about humans than the Galactic Council had discovered in years of study. The surviving crew members worked alongside Kelrani engineers to repair their ships, sharing knowledge and techniques that amazed the alien scientists. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, her arm in a medical cast, showed Kelrani technicians how to reinforce hull plating using methods developed in Earth's asteroid mining operations. The techniques were crude by galactic standards, but incredibly effective. "Your species builds everything to break," Sarah explained to a group of fascinated engineers. "We build things to keep working, even when they should be destroyed." Commander Alex Torres, despite a head injury that would have hospitalized most species for weeks, continued to work on navigation systems. He taught the Kelrani how humans calculated flight paths through dangerous debris fields. "Most species avoid obstacles," Alex said, pointing to a star chart. "Humans go through them. Sometimes the dangerous path is the only one that gets you where you need to go." Ensign Kyle Johnson, the youngest human on the ship, spent his time in the station's computer center. He was analyzing the data they had recovered from the Devourer mothership, searching for clues about where the machines had come from. "Dr. Velithka," Kyle called out from his workstation. "You need to see this." The Kelrani scientist hurried over to the display. Kyle had constructed a map showing Devourer attacks across the galaxy over the past several years. "They are not random," Kyle explained. "The machines are following a pattern, hitting systems with specific types of resources. They are building something big." Dr. Velithka studied the map with growing alarm. The pattern was clear once Kyle pointed it out. The Devourers were systematically consuming worlds rich in rare metals and energy sources needed for advanced technology. "Building something big enough to threaten the entire galaxy," Dr. Velithka whispered. "That is what we think," Kyle agreed. "But now that we know their pattern, we can predict where they will strike next." The implications were staggering. The attack on the Kelrani station had not been an isolated incident. It was part of a vast plan that threatened every civilized world in the galaxy. Captain Morrison joined them at the computer station. "Kyle, transmit all this data to Earth Command. They need to know what we are dealing with." "Already done, sir." I also sent copies to the Galactic Council through the station's communication array. Dr. Velithka looked at the young human in amazement. "You sent military intelligence to your enemy's government?" Jake smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. "Doc, the Devourers are everyone's enemy. This is not about human territory or Kelrani space or council politics. This is about survival." It was then that Dr. Velithka began to understand something profound about the human species. They did not think in terms of us versus them when facing a threat to all life. They thought in terms of how to protect everyone, even people who might be enemies under other circumstances. "Captain Morrison," Dr. Velithka said carefully, "what will humans do now that you know about this threat?" Jake was quiet for a long moment, staring at the star map. "We will do what we always do, Doc. We will fight. And we will keep fighting." until the threat is gone or we are all dead. But this enemy is spread across the entire galaxy. Even humans cannot fight on that scale. Maybe not, Jake admitted. But we can teach others how to fight, how to build ships that do not break when hit, how to use weapons that actually work, how to survive when everything goes wrong. Over the following weeks, the human crews worked with Kelrani scientists to design new defensive systems for the research station. They showed the aliens how to build redundant shields, emergency weapon systems, and escape pods that could actually save lives in a crisis. But more than that, they taught the Kelrani how to think like fighters instead of victims. "Your people are too polite," Lieutenant Mitchell explained to Dr. Velithka one day as they watched engineers install new armor plating. "You assume that everyone will follow the same rules you do. The universe does not work that way." "What do you mean?" "You built this station to study and explore. That is good. But you also need to build it to survive. In space, being peaceful does not keep you alive if someone else decides to be violent." Dr. Velithka was beginning to understand. The Kelrani had assumed that their peaceful intentions would protect them from harm. The humans knew that good intentions meant nothing if you could not defend them. When the human ships were finally repaired enough to travel, Captain Morrison called a meeting. "With all the station personnel, we are heading back to Earth to report what we found," he announced. "But we are not abandoning this sector. Human patrols will be coming through regularly to check on you." Captain Dr. Velithka said, "Why would humans continue to protect us? We are not your people." Jake looked around the room at the assembled Kelrani scientists, technicians, and their families. "Doc, when someone calls for help, humans answer. It does not matter if you are human or alien or something we have never seen before. If you need help, we will come. But surely your government has more important priorities." "Our government consists of people who used to be just like you," Jake replied. "Researchers, teachers, engineers, families trying to live their lives in peace. The only difference is that we learned how to fight when we had to." As the human ships prepared to depart, Dr. Velithka found himself thinking about the future. The galaxy was facing a threat unlike anything it had ever seen. The Galactic Council's fleets were powerful but slow, designed for peacekeeping rather than war. But now, there were humans in space. Humans with their crude, effective weapons and their refusal to accept defeat. Humans who fought not for conquest or glory, but to protect anyone who needed protecting. Dr. Velithka, Captain Morrison said during their final conversation, "We left some communication equipment on your station. If the Devourers come back or if anyone else threatens you, just send us a message." "And humans will come?" "Humans will come," Jake confirmed. "We might not be the biggest fleet or the most advanced technology, but we will come and we will fight, and we will not stop until you are safe." As the two battered human ships left the station and disappeared into hyperspace, Dr. Velithka stood at the observation window and thought about what he had learned. The aliens had called for help expecting civilized assistance from civilized people. Instead, they had received something far more valuable: protection from those who had learned to be uncivilized when civilization was not enough. The age of the Deathworlders had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.